How do you measure the goodness of a character? Is it by their actions? Is it their goal? Or what methods do they use to achieve that goal? When it comes to the leader of the teen team and the ex-leader of the Guardians of the Globe, the lines between villain and hero are quite blurred. Yes, we are talking about Robot, the multifaceted character who is extremely good at machines and double-crossing people. Rudolph Connor had a hard life owing to his defect, and while his massive intellect helped him to become a hero, that also helped shape him in a certain way. In today's video, we will take a dive into the anatomy of this character introduced in issue 2 of Invincible comics and see how he manages to get away with his morally gray shenanigans. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Robot? What does he look like? There was a group of teen superheroes in the world of Invincible. This team and our teen hero had a run-in when this team was fighting against a criminal scientist duo, the Mahler twins. The leader of this teen team was a robot who was called, well, Robot. Robot asked Invincible to join the teen team, but Invincible declined the offer politely. With that, we are introduced to Robot. He has a mechanical voice, and his glowing green eyes create a nice but menacing contrast with his orange body. Robot, since his first introduction, made it very clear that he was a man of few words. He was always seen working on something, and we saw him easily join the dots when it came to the local bombings. It turned out that one of Invincible's and Adam Eve's high school teachers, David Hiles, was the one who was doing the bombings. Once the man was apprehended, Robot informed his team that he was given an offer to join the Guardians of the Globe, which he would accept, effectively dissolving the teen team. However, soon after that, Omni-Man assassinated all the Guardians of the Globe, and by Cecil Stedman's request, Robot started the tryouts for the new Guardians of the Globe. Once the new Guardians of the Globe were formed, Robot took the position of the leader, and whenever Invincible was in trouble, like his fight with Battle Beast, Robot showed up with the new Guardians to help him out. Overall, Robot seemed like a nice enough sentient robot, but as we follow the story, we uncover the layers of Robot, which make him quite an interesting character to follow.
We still have work to do, but I feel confident in...
What does his real body look like? Why can't he live outside the pod? When we first meet Robot, we have several reasons to believe that he's actually nothing more than a sentient robot. He has that weird mechanical way of speaking, even though little bits and pieces of sass are thrown into the conversation. However, we soon learned that this is not the case. We get to see his real body, and it is rather heartbreaking. It turns out that Rudolph Connor was born with a condition that made normal air burn his skin. Owing to this sensitivity, he was put in a tube filled with fluid to protect his skin from burning. On top of this condition, Rudolph was actually deformed. He was born with several defects. His neural connections were far denser than normal humans, and he was barely over the size of a child. His motor cortex was so tiny that there was no way it would have helped him do motor functions. His cerebrum was huge, which was basically overlapping and sort of eating parts of his brain. His lungs were not adapted to the oxygen in the atmosphere either. Instead, his lungs had a toxic reaction to oxygen in the atmosphere. His body was covered in sores and blisters, and his nose had a mechanical clamp. We cannot even see both of his eyes in the animated series, while in the comic book, he looks like this baby with stubble. Overall, Rudolph's real body is quite difficult to look at, and you can almost sympathize with his whole plan of getting a new body, even though he freed criminals in order to gain it.
Of course, his brain's abnormal.
How does his brain work? Originally, when it came to Rudolph Connor, he was able to control the robots with the help of his knowledge of mechanics. He was able to create an operating system that allowed him to control the drones over a huge distance without any issues. However, when he decided to get a new body that we will discuss in a few minutes, he decided that he should use his brain to control the drones instead of an operating system. He designed a neural link that basically put the operating system directly in his brain. This allowed him to control all the drones using his brain. So now, instead of using a device to control his drones, he was able to use his brain instead. How cool is that?
Just installed for me.
Robot can duplicate his consciousness into clones. Ever since Robot met Monster Girl, who shared a very similar plight to his with her body, Robot got to thinking about how he could overcome this plight. As we have mentioned before, Rudolph was born with a condition that made his skin burn on contact with normal air. This made it very difficult for him to function and live out his life as a normal person. The deformities he was born with did not make it easier on him. So, when Monster Girl entered the picture and Robot saw that she found Rexplode interesting, he decided to use Rexplode's DNA and make himself a new body. In order to get a new body, he needed people who were very good at genetics and cloning, and there was no one in the Image universe better at genetics and cloning than the Mahler twins. So even though Robot is a good guy, he decides to resort to bad things and breaks the Mahler twins out of prison. During the prison break, one of the Mahler twins was killed off, which led to the remaining Mahler building the machine from scratch to make his twin. Once the twins were together, Robot approached them with an offer. With Rex's blood, the Mahler twins were able to make a new body. Now, to make the transition rather seamless, the consciousness of the original body was copied into the new body, making it difficult for the original and the clone to determine who is actually the original. Obviously, when it came to Rudolph and Rudy, it was very obvious who the clone was and who the original was. Once the body was made, before transferring the consciousness, Rudolph asked the Mahler twins to put in a neural link into the body of Rudy. And with the success of the transfer of consciousness, Rudolph's whole psyche was now duplicated and put into Rudy's head. How do his drones work? Rudolph Connors, as we see in the comics, was never physically able to control the drones that he had. However, we have never once seen him without his loyal drones following along with his wishes. This was because, when it comes to Rudolph, he used advanced technopathy, which enabled him to use drones despite the long distances. This is how the original Rudolph Connors used his drones. However, when he got the Mahler twins to make his new body, he specifically told the twins to put a neural link in the back of his neck. This neural link was something that the original Rudolph had designed to make sure that in future, Rudy the clone would not have to depend on the controls to use the drones like he had been doing. Is Invincible a clone of Robot? Robot is a cunning character, and we see him easily overthrow Mark and abandon him in a different dimension when we follow the Angstrom-Levy arc. For those of you who do not remember, Angstrom-Levy was a man who could travel through dimensions and had a grudge against the main timeline Mark. So he collected a variety of Invincibles from several dimensions and hoped that they would eventually wipe out the main timeline Mark. However, that did not happen, and eventually one of the evil Marks that he brought from a different dimension took Angstrom-Levy with him to his own dimension. In this evil Mark's dimension, the Viltrumites had taken over Earth, and he was the Emperor. When the main timeline Mark and Robot showed up in this dimension to see what had happened to Angstrom, they were shocked to find that the evil Mark had cut Angstrom open while keeping him alive. While main timeline Mark and evil Mark were busy with this Angstrom-Levy, Robot created a high-frequency noise that was enough to hurt the Viltrumites. He killed the scientist working on Levy, Evil Mark, and Levy himself. Leaving the main timeline Mark behind incapacitated on the floor, Robot escaped to the real timeline using the machine that opened portals. Main Timeline Mark wakes up and decides the only way he can get out of this dimension and go back to his dimension would be by taking the help of the same person who had abandoned him here. Main Timeline Mark reached out to the robot of this dimension, hoping this robot would be able to make the machine that would open the dimension portals. And even though Robot was reluctant to help, Main Timeline Mark decided to sweeten the deal for him and make him an offer that Rudolph simply could not refuse. In this timeline, Rudolph had not gotten a clone of Rex's body and was still in his original body. However, he had strong feelings about the Viltrum Empire and wanted it to be changed. Now, as the actual emperor, the evil Mark was dead, and the Main Timeline Mark was pretending to be the evil Mark. Main Timeline Mark suggested that Robot would be able to change the world in whichever way he liked using Mark's cloned body. So, with the help of the surviving Mahler twin, who also wanted to make things right, Mark made a clone of his body and copied Rudolph's consciousness into it. The original body of Rudolph was crushed under the rubble, as this whole off-site place where they were working was attacked by the Viltrumites. However, the Invincible clone with Robot's mind showed up and was able to defuse the situation. With that, we have an Invincible in a dimension who is actually Robot. Which alloys give his suit a superhuman strength? How strong is he? One of the striking factors about the robot drones that we see Robot or Rex control is that they are all extremely strong. The opponents have to definitely work significantly hard in order to break apart these drones. This is because when Rudolph designed all of these machines, he used a titanium alloy. Using this titanium alloy as a base, Rudolph added some chemical compounds into them to make them extremely durable. The durability of his drones is shown more when we see how strong they are. Rudolph is a very good mechanical engineer. We often see him tinkering with something, and whenever he makes something, whether it is a machine or a drone, he does a really good job at it, owing to his expertise. This knowledge helped him design the alloy that he used to make his drones, and it also helped him design strong enough machines that could easily lift a ton of weight over their head with ease. His automatons also have superhuman senses, which allows him to be a step ahead of his teammates, making him a rather responsible leader.
Very much.
I wouldn't be recovered if it wasn't for you. You saved my life.
Does he have any love interest? Can he reproduce? Throughout the whole Invincible series, there are not many couples who have gone through so many life-changing events together as Robot and Monster Girl have. Since her first introduction in the comics, when she showed up for the tryouts for Guardians of the Globe, it was clear that she had caught Robot's attention. There have been several small instances which made it obvious that the usually sassy and snarky Robot had some sort of soft corner for Monster Girl. This became much more obvious when Monster Girl got fatally wounded in her battle with Battle Beast. Battle Beast had injured her severely, and immediately, as retaliation, Robot attacked Battle Beast with his energy beams, making it obvious that he was not very happy with everything that was happening. He plays a crucial role in the healing of Monster Girl by sending one of his drones to get a rare flower that will help her. As we learn more about Robot's backstory, we realize why he has such a soft corner for Monster Girl. Just like Monster Girl is a woman in her late 20s who is trapped in a body that is not of her age, which makes it difficult for her to express herself according to her age, it is the same case for Robot. Robot Rudolph Connor is a man in his 30s, as we have mentioned before, and owing to his birth defects and deformities, he is unable to experience his life to the fullest and is forced to live out of his life as a robot. Even though Robot is a good guy, he is not above using bad means to achieve his goal, and we saw him do that when he freed the Mahler twins. He used them to develop a body for himself based on his teammate Rex Splode, because Monster Girl found him interesting. When we see his deformed body, which was in this fluid-filled tube, Rudolph mentions that the tube was never meant to be opened, but he is opening it now because he had met someone. eventually killing it. In the comics, when Robot and Monster Girl end up in the Flaxen Empire, they get closer together enough to start a relationship. Together, they overthrew the Zaxel royal family, and Robot became the ruler of the Flaxen Empire. He chose Monster Girl to be the one to rule next to him, and together, they tried to have a family. Sadly, they could not do it, because this cloned Rex is not fertile. Due to this infertility, there was nothing that the cloned Rex could do to satisfy Monster Girl's craving to have a family. This eventually drove a wedge between the couple because Robot focused more on his work, and Monster Girl, who did not quite know why Robot was taking the measure against the Zaxel family so severely, decided to revolt against Robot, which was a whole new can of worms itself. Eventually, it was discovered that while Robot was captured by the Zaxel family, Monster Girl had an affair with one of the members of the Zaxel family and unknowingly had sired a child with the girl. And this was just the beginning of their cathartic relationship. So, Robot and Monster Girl definitely had quite a dramatic relationship, to say the least. Does he have the ability to fool an entire planet? Robot is an intelligent guy. I mean, he can even be considered a nerd too. But there is something that he has which differentiates him from the herd: charisma. Charisma and deception go hand in hand. Usually, when you see a nerd in any type of media, whether it is a movie or a book, the nerd is seen to be a bit of a klutz, extremely antisocial, and bad at talking. However, when it comes to Robot, he is not like that. Robot just knows exactly what he needs to say to get away with anything that he does, to get whatever he wants. When we see him take the blood of his colleague to clone his body, we see how casually Robot is able to explain it away. This ability of his makes him extremely charming, and we later see him rule the Flaxen Empire by doing that. When the Flaxen people elected him to be an emperor after the Great War of Independence, Robot accepted this because he was confident that he would be able to change the way the Flaxen people led their lives and would be able to make sure that they never attacked Earth again. When he finally decided to come back to Earth, he told the people to kill every member of the Zaxel royal family, even though he had said that he would no longer interfere with the Flaxen people as they no longer needed him and Monster Girl. Even though he was in this dimension for several hundred years, he decided to lie to Cecil Stedman and told Monster Girl to lie to Cecil as well and tell him that they spent 12 years in this dimension instead of the actual amount of time they spent there together. All of these interwoven small lies make it very clear to the fans that Robot is not who he seems to be, and it comes as no surprise when Robot is able to fool an entire planet with ease.
We still have work to do, but I feel confident in...
Marvelous verdict. Rex, Rudy, or Robot, no matter by what name you know him as, Rudolph Connor has been quite the character to follow. Throughout the whole Invincible comics, he only wanted to do what was good for the planet and for his people, but that had pushed him to make quite the wrong choices, and he ended up hurting people who were close to him. His good intentions were always buried under his bad decisions, and that cost him quite a few close relationships. However, he did keep his word, and he ended up doing as well as he said he would. His anatomy definitely helped him in his crusade to achieve his goal, but in the end, what did all this cost? What do you think, dear viewers? Is he a villain or is he a hero? How do you see him? Let us know down below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.